The alarm goes off. You hear it. And you just don't move. Not because you're tired, not because you don't care. You're fully awake. You know you need to get up, and your body refuses. So you lie there, listening to yourself think, what is wrong with me? If that's a feeling you know, stay. Because that moment has a name, a cause, and it has nothing to do with laziness. Here's what it actually looks like from the inside. You don't sleep through the alarm, you hear it, hit snooze, hear it again, and somewhere in your chest, a low-grade dread begins to build. Not excitement for the day, not peace, dread, the kind that makes the bed feel less like a place you're choosing to stay, and more like the only place that feels safe. You make deals with yourself. Just 5 more minutes. Just until this song ends. Just until I feel ready. And the 5 minutes pass, and you don't feel ready. So you make another deal. You scroll. Not because you want to, but because your thumb is moving before your brain is caught up. And suddenly you've spent 40 minutes consuming other people's lives while yours waits outside the door. The worst part isn't the lost time. The worst part is what happens in your head while it's all going on. The commentary is relentless. You did this yesterday. You're going to be late. You had plans. You always do this. And somehow the shame of not getting up makes it even harder to get up. Like the guilt itself becomes another weight pinning you there. You know this makes no logical sense. That's what makes it so maddening. Here's what's actually happening. And it has nothing to do with character, willpower, or how much you want to succeed. When you wake up, your brain doesn't go from sleep to fully operational in a single switch. There's a transition state called sleep inertia, where your body is technically awake, but your brain is still chemically finishing the job of sleeping. A compound called adenosine, which builds up throughout the day and drives your need for sleep, doesn't vanish the moment your alarm sounds. Its residue lingers, and in that window, which can last anywhere from a few minutes to several hours, your cognitive performance is genuinely, measurably impaired. You are not being dramatic. You are, in a real neurological sense, not fully online yet. But for many people, something else is also happening, something that goes beyond the chemistry of waking up. Psychologists call it executive dysfunction, a breakdown in the brain's ability to initiate action. Not the desire to act, not the intention, the initiation. The brain knows what needs to happen. It wants it to happen. But the neurological signal that bridges thought and movement, the one that says go, doesn't fire the way it should. You are not choosing to stay in bed. You are waiting for a signal that isn't coming. And then there's what gets called the wall of awful, a concept discussed extensively in neurodiversity spaces. It's the invisible accumulation of anxiety, shame, and past failure that surrounds a simple task. Getting out of bed stops being a physical act and becomes a doorway into everything the day is going to ask of you. And your brain, very reasonably, does not want to walk through it. So why does the wall exist in the first place? Where does the weight actually come from? For some people, it's biology. Research into circadian rhythms shows that a meaningful portion of the population has an internal clock that is genuinely, structurally misaligned with the schedules society calls normal. Their bodies aren't designed to feel awake at 7 a.m. This isn't preference. This isn't laziness. This is neurology running on a different timetable, one that the world has decided is a personal failing. For others, the bed has become something more than a place to sleep. When life feels unpredictable, demanding, or just too much, the brain begins to register the bed as the one environment of total control. Out there, things are uncertain. In here, nothing can be asked of you. The psychologist's term is emotional avoidance. But the lived experience is simpler than that. The world feels like a lot, and this is the one place it isn't. And for others still, particularly those living with depression, the inability to get up isn't a symptom of something. It is something. Research has found that difficulty getting out of bed appears in over 70% of people with depression, at rates nearly identical to difficulty falling asleep and staying asleep. Not being able to move isn't the result of a bad attitude. It is the illness, making itself known before the day has even started. But we have to name what this pattern is actually costing you, because there is a cost. The shame spiral that lives in those morning minutes doesn't stay in the morning. It follows you. It becomes the evidence you compile against yourself. I can't even get up on time. How am I supposed to handle anything else? And that evidence changes how you approach the rest of the day, not with energy, with the already exhausted posture of someone who has already lost. And here is the cruel irony. The shame of staying in bed makes it harder to leave it. The more you berate yourself for not moving, the more your nervous system registers the situation as a threat. And a threatened nervous system does not move toward hard things. It contracts. It stays. Every harsh word you say to yourself in those minutes is not motivation. It is another weight, and you have been carrying it long enough to mistake it for your own. Here's what changes when you understand what's actually happening. The voice that calls you lazy is not telling the truth. It is an old, exhausted survival response. One that learned somewhere along the way that the only acceptable version of you is the productive one, the moving one, the one who does not lie in bed while the world moves without them. And so it attacks you into action, the only strategy it knows. But that strategy has never worked. Because shame is not a fuel source. It is a drain. The mornings when you cannot move are not evidence of who you are. They are data points about what your nervous system is carrying, about how much you've been asked to process, about what your brain chemistry is doing, about how far your internal clock sits from the one the world expects you to keep. The goal is not to become someone who springs out of bed every morning, relentlessly motivated, impervious to the pull of stillness. That person is a myth. The goal is to understand what the stillness is telling you, and to stop punishing yourself for needing a moment before you can face what's waiting. You were not built wrong. You were not designed to be endlessly available, endlessly productive, endlessly ready. You were built human, and humans sometimes need longer to start. If this felt like something you've needed someone to say out loud, if some part of you is still quietly insisting, but I really am just lazy, I want you to notice that voice. That's the pattern talking, not the truth. You are not lazy. You are a person with a nervous system that has been asked to carry more than it knows how to show you. Subscribe. We'll keep bringing you videos that take the things you feel but can't explain and give them the science they deserve. And comment below, what does that inner voice say to you in those morning minutes? I want to know, because whatever it's saying, I can almost guarantee it's harder on you than the facts warrant. You were never failing those mornings. You were just running on a system that needed more than the world gave it time for.